And welcome to our inaugural podcast here at Perry Johnson Registrars Food Safety Incorporated, a mouthful, and that's why we go by PJRFSI. We are a global certification body, and we're very happy here to be doing our inaugural podcast with Danielle Dutreix. Danielle is with World Class Consultants, WCC HACCP. Check them out online. Danielle is a native of New Orleans, where she attended LSU. She holds a BS in nutrition, a certificate in HACCP management, PCQI, and certified food safety manager, instructor, proctor. She's got over 20 years in the food industry. She's worked with multiple independent and corporate clients in the training and the development of HACCP and food safety programs, worked both in the manufacturing and processing side of food and in the retail end. Today, we're going to be talking about the manufacturing and processing side of things. Danielle, welcome to our inaugural podcast here on PJRFSI.
Wow, thank you.
You are a native of New Orleans, where I currently live, but you jumped ship and moved out to Baltimore, Maryland. And oddly enough, the two places in the country, in my opinion, don't want to offend anybody here, that have the greatest seafood dishes. That would be the New Orleans area and, oh boy, that Baltimore crab.
Indeed.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Danielle and I met a while back, and we were able to actually have some of that delicious food while we talked about food and food certifications, and came to realize that we had a lot in common. We both worked really in the same industry, and we thought we should have a podcast and share our knowledge and share Danielle's knowledge specifically. I'm kind of on the business end of certifications. Danielle is really right there in the nitty gritty and helping her clients, whether it be newcomers to certification or those that are well-versed in certification. Danielle's really got the full gauntlet of experience to handle all of those scenarios. But today we're going to talk more about the basic approach and some of the basic things when somebody's really building their first HACCP plan. And we get a lot of questions. We got a lot of people coming to us, Danielle, that have been in the manufacturing or processing space for a little while, and more, there are customers of theirs, or more importantly, potential customers, as they try to expand their place in the market, that are requiring at least a basic HACCP plan, possibly a GMP certification and things like that. And those things that they want to establish before they move on to maybe a GFSI standard, like a SQF, BRC, FSSC, a global gap for your cultivators. But we're going to talk about a HACCP plan here today and kind of start from those basics from a consultant's perspective, Danielle. Danielle, what I first want to start out with here, because I think this is really a question a lot of folks coming into their first HACCP experience are asking us and are asking themselves, what are those common questions that you hear the most when someone comes to WCC and are saying, listen, I need a HACCP plan. I've never done this before. What are those most common starter questions that you seem to be fielding?
So I would say, with my experience, most clients, they need a HACCP plan, either regulatory requirements or even a third-party inspector like you. They're going to be inspected. They need GMP standards, and they don't really know, where to start. And whatever we write a HACCP plan, it's going to be specific to their establishment, the food that they're going to process, the equipment that they're going to use, and how it's going to flow through their operation from the moment it comes into that warehouse until it's boxed, it's packaged, and it's out the door. And each step in that process, from receiving it, purchasing it, receiving it, storing it, it may be a whole cow that they are then going to chop, grind, reduce oxygen, package it, labeling requirements, boxing it, and then eventually shipping it, and it's going out the door. And each step in that process are these biological hazards. And when you start to talk about biological hazards and the science behind it, a lot of clients, they're lost. So a HACCP plan, when I consult my clients, I explained to them what the process is for a HACCP plan. We want to be compliant to a third party and vendor, but also to any local regulatory agencies. And we go through each product, and I explain to them, with the help of them, of course, supporting their flow of food. So we process each step, identify the hazards, and that is involved in a hazard analysis. And a hazard analysis is pretty lengthy. So I would say that subject alone in doing a hazard analysis is where you have to really identify all the bacterias. And some of these bacterias, you wouldn't even, if you read it, you wouldn't know how to pronounce it. Campylobacter, Bacillus cereus, Clostridium botulism, Listeria monocytogenes. When you're reading this stuff, you're like, what the heck? What is this?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where my expertise comes in. I know how to identify all those bacterias, and I've really relaxed the client. Like, look, I'm the expert. We're going to know, I'm identifying these bacterias. We're going to process everything through the flow of food, and we're going to come up with some standard operating procedures that are going to support your HACCP plan. And that includes a lot. So that's training for employees, that's the processors, the handlers, the receiving clerks, the packers, and the managers, oversight, just to give a few.
And I'm glad you mentioned, some of those, bacteria and stuff like that. And I'm laughing, because my vocabulary rarely goes beyond 3-syllable words. But my point being is, consultants, all consultants, Danielle included, is something that really can be advantageous to bring on, especially in those early stages, because this is complex stuff. This really is. The other point I wanted to touch on is what you spoke about in terms of bringing the entire team on board with this, which is so critical because they're the ones that are really going to be doing it day in and day out. And that hazard analysis, what I've seen so many times, what I've heard so many people going through their initial HACCP plan and undergoing that and putting it together, is just how surprised they were at just how many potential risks that they had never really even thought of. And these are smart people that have been working in the food manufacturing or processing space for some time. So it really is, if you don't have the aid of an experienced, and I say experienced quality assurance personnel, do your best to bring in a consultant whenever possible, because, the risks obviously are they can be downright scary if you're not addressing them correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And a lot of clients, they have these practices in place already. It's almost, it's automatic, but you have to be clear on what it is that you're actually doing, and understanding that by doing these processes, by doing your reduced oxygen packaging correctly, that what is it that we're trying to prevent? Because we want to be safe for the food to be consumed by the public, right? We don't want to get sick. You don't want to get sick. Our children don't want to get sick. So it is just knowledge. They're already in doing it. They're doing it every day. But it's then bringing that knowledge that they need to know, because when we do a HACCP plan, many times the client is they're going to be audited, with someone like you. And so we really try to build that HACCP plan that's going to support their operation. So when they are inspected, and not just the health department, but internal auditors like yourself, that their standard operating procedures, their day-to-day operations is supporting what that third party is looking for.
Absolutely. And that's critical. Yeah. It's one thing writing up the plan, but actually putting it in action, getting everyone trained on it, making sure that day in and day out, this is being followed, just for safety's sake, obviously, not just to pass the audit, but for safety's sake. And, you talk about the risks involved. Obviously the most important risk is to the consumer's health. But you want to talk about the risk to your brand that you've built so hard that you've worked so hard to build, and your reputation as a reputable processor, manufacturer of whatever of XYZ product, God forbid if there's a recall, that's something that even the largest companies in the world have trouble
Absolutely.
and can take them years or decades to overcome.
That's right.
Danielle, what are some of let's just talk broadly here, but what are some of the prerequisite programs that a client might need to support the operation?
Well, prerequisite programs are really key because the operation requires just some basic food safety training for their employees, personal hygiene training, and that can include everything from hand washing to uniform policies, hair nets. The FDA food code just introduced beard restraints as a requirement this year in all manufacturing and processing plants. Um, Jewelry requirements, um, also preparation practices, like how food needs to be prepared, how long can it sit out in the danger zone, um, cooking if they are doing any cooking on site, cooling, thawing, um, packaging, USDA labeling. Like those are some of the standard operating procedures that need to be prerequisite in order to support the HACCP plan. And once they have these in place, quite frankly, and going back to like the audit piece, you're right. It's not just about the audit. If these are their standard operating procedures, this is stuff that they're doing every day. Then there's no surprise. This is their standard, and there shouldn't be a shock. When there's a unannounced audit or an inspector that's on site, because they're solid. These are their day-to-day practices. Their employees are properly trained, and this is the standard, and they hold up that high standard. Then that's what we do. We really take that and so that they can be at ease with the program, and it's going to work for their processes, for their flow. It's I'm not going to say that it's going to be easy, but it's easier if you have those systems in place.
And anybody that's been through a third-party audit before, whatever it might be, whether it be HACCP, GMP, GFSI standard, whatever it is, that auditor or inspector is going to be talking to a lot of those staff.
Yes.
A lot of them. A
Yes.
lot of them. And one of those things that can really hurt people is when the people that are on the line, whatever it might be, just don't seem to have a good self-awareness when it comes to their role within that quality assurance program, or just don't appear to have been educated properly on types of things they need to be looking for, types of things they need to be mindful of day in and day out. And that's what we always refer to as food safety culture. It's a buzzword out there. We hear it so often, but it's very real. Food safety culture is what it's all about. I don't care if you just got a HACCP plan that you're just starting on, or you are in your 10th year of an SQF certification. Food safety culture is critical, and that means everybody that's working there understands the rules of safety.
Oh, indeed.
Really.
And they're implementing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Exactly.
it is like we were saying earlier, there's one thing to have the knowledge, but you have to do it. You have to be doing it every day. So training is ongoing, and it has to be implemented as part of their daily practices, because they do need to demonstrate the knowledge. Right? It's one thing to have a training document and everyone signed off on it, but in the day-to-day operations, you have to demonstrate that knowledge. And so that's what we do. We make it easy for them because it's going to support their operation. They're kind of doing it already. But we're just writing the standard and making sure that, that it is the high standard, that we're following whatever CFR or, regulations that are required. That CFR, for those who don't know, is a code of federal regulations, which is kind of the standard.
Mm-hmm. And there's a whole lot of them.
Yes, there are.
Oh my goodness. I remember when I first started in this industry reading those code of federal regulations and feeling like, boy, am I in over my head. This all seems like lawyer speak.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it absolutely can.
Covers a lot for sure.
Oh, let's close out here today, Danielle. I did have one more question I kind of wanted to pose here, and this is an important one. Is how do you ensure, especially from a consultant's perspective, okay? How do you ensure that HACCP plan is going to gain approval and compliance with a myriad of regulatory agencies?
Well, I'm an expert in the field in reading and deciphering those codes. And so whether it's FDA, or we had recently a plant that needed a USDA inspection, it's key to understanding what the codes are and what they need to be compliant. And my clients, I guarantee 100% satisfaction from the start of that plan until it's approved. And I work directly with the regulatory agency to guarantee that that plan will be approved. And whatever necessary steps, whatever we have to fix, if it's equipment, if it's a process, if it's a step, I make sure that the client is going to feel at ease that plan is going to get approved.
And that's a big, that's something that is an attribute that, I see in the best consultants out there, including your agency, Danielle, is really taking that conscientious approach to, not just setting up that HACCP plan, not just doing the documentation, not, just here you go, good luck. That it going into your first audit sometimes can be a little bit intimidating for people, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You got to be prepared. It's always good to be nervous. Nervous makes you better. Nervous makes you perform better. But truly being prepared and having somebody on your side. And again, this is why, and I think any certification body out there is always thrilled to hear when a consultant is involved. It means that they're taking every step they can to really be doing it right, not just winging it. You never want to wing it going into an inspection or an audit. We all know how that turns out. So having a consultant to help you out is always something that is highly advised. So Danielle, thank you so much for being with us here today. We are going to continue this conversation and discuss more about HACCP plans and maybe a little bit more on the advanced or intermediate level at the very least the next time we talk. Danielle, thank you so much for being part of PJRFSI's inaugural podcast. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Joel. And maybe next time we can talk on the seafood end and we can incorporate crab cakes.
Okay. Well, I wasn't hungry, but now I am.
Right.
All right. Yeah,
Okay,
there goes my plan for having toast for lunch. Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
We got to up that.
Danielle, thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Joel. Have a great day.